Mayor Kaohly Her, what is your favorite Olympic event?
It's gymnastics.
There we go. Shout out Suni Lee. Mayor Tane Danger, what is your favorite Olympic event?
Diving, which I will say much harder at the Winter Olympics than the Summer Olympics.
I'm a track guy through and through. When you see the people running as fast as they can, it's hard to imagine something more impressive than that. But yes, the Olympics are coming up in a matter of days, and good to know what everybody's favorites are. Today on CityCast Twin Cities, we will have a conversation with St. Paul Mayor Kaohly Her. In her new position as mayor, Her has stepped into a very trying time for any leader. We look forward to getting an understanding on how she sees her role as a leader during Operation Metro Surge and how she sees her role as a leader in general. Welcome to CityCast Twin Cities, Mayor Kaohly Her.
Thank you for having me on.
This is my first time wearing a blazer. I'm sure Tane Danger probably slept in a blazer. I would also like to welcome him on. He is an improviser and a debate moderator extraordinaire. Welcome back to CityCast, Tane Danger.
Thank you so much. Very excited to be here with the mayor.
Now, Mayor Her, I do wish that we were doing a completely soft, get-to-know-the-mayor type of chat where it's like, what's your morning routine and how are you doing? And, what's your favorite planner and your coffee drink? But that type of conversation exclusively would be unfair to the moment we're in. We are in the thick of what State Attorney General Keith Ellison called a federal invasion, and it is a very trying time to be a leader. And you are coming into this just weeks into the job. And I just want to ask you, what is your proudest decision? And flip side, what is the decision you regret the most in your administration's response to Operation Metro Surge?
So I would say that my proudest decision maybe not be the obvious thing to people, but, I am the first person in the history of St. Paul to change the mayor's office structure from a traditional mayor, deputy mayor system to having 4 assistant mayors. We were able to have one of the assistant mayors over public safety and justice that we've been dealing with this crisis. 3 days, it hasn't even been weeks, right? 3 days into my administration was the shooting of Renee Macklin Good. And so we have been really putting out fires around the public safety arena day in and day out. And while we've been doing that, usually a lot of times administrations are just putting out fires, they never get to the work. Because I have 3 other assistant mayors, they have been keeping the work of the city going. All the things that I promised our residents around having better processes, being open for business, welcoming development, and working on, just all of the issues that we think are important in our cities, just the nuts and bolts of it. We continue to move on those work. So that's probably my proudest decision and the thing that I am the most confident that we did the right thing. I would say that your other question was, what is the thing that I'm not proud about, or how I would. That's hard to say because I feel like we have done our best to meet the moment. I might say that the thing that I might have, I think I do have one. Okay, the thing that I think that maybe I might have not made the best decision is that I'm somebody who does the work very quietly, that I'm in community a lot, and I've been working with different immigrant refugee groups, and we've been putting together solutions, but we do it very quietly behind the scenes because I don't think that every issue should be a media event. And so there is a perception that maybe I'm not speaking as much, I'm not doing as much press, that I'm not out there enough, and I'm not, maybe bringing real solutions to the table. But it's because I do work very quietly behind the scenes, and we have a lot of great solutions that I can't wait to share with people. We've already put very much of it out there, but I can't wait to have more detailed discussions with people about all the great solutions we put together and the partners we're working with.
Okay, I'm going to jump in with a hard question here, just because that's the times that we're in. You named having one of your assistant mayors working in public safety. Mm-hmm. There's a debate right now, definitely in Minneapolis. I imagine it's coming up in St. Paul as well, about whether or not police should be blockading streets or allowing citizens to create sort of spaces where there would be checkpoints for people. Is this something that you would consider directing St. Paul police to barricade particular streets to make it more difficult for ICE to go through neighborhoods?
I guess I hadn't actually heard that. What's the purpose of the barricades? I mean, wouldn't that make it difficult for the residents themselves to also be able to get around? I guess I.
It's a fair point. But I mean, the notion is that it slows things down and it gives folks who are doing watches in neighborhoods an opportunity to see who's coming in and out, run license plates, things like that. There's been some sort of citizen action in this in Minneapolis, I know for sure, and there's calls from DSA members of the city council and others to empower MPD to actually set up some of these kinds of things.
So, I mean, boy, this is the complexity of the moment we're in, right? Like, I think about how that is actually, it's a great idea for us to figure out how do we slow down what ICE is doing. But I also have seen firsthand now, having been spent time with my fire department, which is that all of our EMS and emergency services are delivered through fire, right? And then fire won't go into a situation unless police clears the scene. So every time that emergency services are called out, police has to also be called out to clear the scene first. And so now when you have people who are injured or people who are needing access when roads are blocked, you can't get emergency vehicles into there, right? So there's a practical reason as to why that actually would be challenging, but there's also, a benefit to that. And I think that is the push and the pull that we need to evaluate right now. And is that solution? I will say that there have been steps that we've taken in our police department to actually try to have more police involvement into what is happening in our community now, right? Like we in St. Paul now have one commander who is designated to working on issues around ICE. So like when we have, accounts of we think that there is ICE somewhere and we report that, like one commander takes all of that and they're doing the work around that, or we are having responses coming through one particular person instead of like people just randomly calling 911 hoping somebody's going to come out, right? We've also worked together with like community groups and like how do we let community lead when there is a gathering of a lot of protesters or people demonstrating, like there's just a number of steps that we've taken to really try to empower community, but also to say like we're going to have directed resources to oversee the work that is happening right now. Is it sufficient? Absolutely not. I mean, for the moment that we are in, it is just not enough. But is it, and also we've put some guidelines around like you should call 911 when you need help, right? I think that people were confused and when do police step in and when don't they step in? So we put guidelines around that and we've, instructed our police department, like when people call 911, you show up. So I think that there's already action that we're taking that we're hoping is meeting the moment, but there's more that we can always do.
Mayor Her, I have two mini asides before I get to my question, but you mentioned briefly that the fire department in St. Paul takes care of EMS. I frequently spend time in the sauna at the St. Paul YMCA with a retired St. Paul Fire Department dude named Brian. And you mention anything and he will bring up, like, we do that. Minneapolis doesn't do that. They have separate folks. Like it's like a real source of pride for our fire department that they also provide those EMS services. That's aside number one. Aside number two, have you ever been to the little Asian spot right next to the Children's Museum? I think it might be called Asia Max. It's right across from the subway. I know we've all spent our time in downtown St. Paul. Do you know the place I'm talking about?
I know, but I don't think I've been there.
I'm not strongly endorsing their food, Mayor Her, to be honest, but I thought being the mayor of St. Paul was a really hard job until one time I saw Chris Coleman sitting by his damn self just mowing down on all this food. And I was going, oh, I thought this was all like meetings and every time you're, doing anything, you got to be super fancy and super put together. And I was like, this dude is getting the same lunch I'm getting as a radio host down the street. And it made me realize that there's a reputation for St. Paul leaders, at least since the time of like Randy Kelly, which is the first mayor I can really remember, of kind of being quieter and less bombastic than our neighbors in Minneapolis rather. And I'm trying to figure out, does that personally fit your style to sort of, be grabbing a quick lunch by yourself and maybe not turning everything to a press conference? So A, does that fit your personal style? And B, does that fit the style we need at this moment when sometimes the game is calling attention to what is happening here and maybe this is not the time to move quietly?
Yeah, so I think that, It's always difficult for me to answer this question because, like, as somebody with the lived experience I have, that at the legislature, I was very loud and vocal. I mean, I carried really radical bills, as people would say, like the fifth tier tax bill, or the Equal Rights Amendment bill. Like, I carried some pretty, I carried gun bills as well. But I find that at the city here, like being a pragmatist, because we are the capital city, that it is important to have a level of pragmatism in the work to move things forward. And so I think that that does fit my style a little bit, but it's not as much about like a style. It is that really leading for the situation that you are in. And I've done a lot of assessment. My doctorate is in education leadership, and like I've learned that my leadership style is to be a situational leader. So I meet I use my leadership style is to meet people in the moment where it is, not as much of this is who I am and this is how I lead. So I think that it's just been something that I've been able to step into and be able to do just kind of quietly, because my nature already is that everything doesn't have to be a show, but I'm also somebody who will fight vigorously for the values that I stand for, and I will absolutely do it loud if I need to, because I've demonstrated I can do that. To your other question of, is this the moment but that's something that we need to be loud? It's so interesting, Sean, because like I feel like I've been really loud. I feel like I think I've done a ton of press. I've been on national news outlets. I've had features in like The Guardian and in, like the like really big press pieces. And it's so interesting. And I don't know if maybe it's a facet of who I am, or a facet of like how we are socialized as a country, in that when a woman, and an Asian woman, is speaking, because we are always hyper invisible, that we just say that, well, she's not loud enough, or she's not yelling hard enough. But I feel like I have been. And so it's just interesting that the perception of what people have of what I'm doing versus like how we're socialized to see somebody like me, right?
Yeah, I will say, I know you've done The Guardian, CNN, a whole bunch of stuff. You're doing CityCast now. So this is going to totally break that open, I promise. But you teed up my question perfectly, because you are a former legislator. You came from the legislature. Legislature is about to convene. Are there things that you are calling up your former colleagues about at the legislature and saying, hey, we really need this in St. Paul this year in particular because of what's going on? Are there things that you're hoping come out of this session?
Yeah, I mean, it's no like secret that, we are the capital city. And so when there's demonstrations, when there's protests, when there's, things that happen, city police is actually our law enforcement, our EMS services, our fire. They're the ones that are like coming out on these calls. And so the minute, even if somebody's demonstrating at the Capitol grounds, the minute somebody steps onto the streets, they now are become the responsibility of the city of St. Paul. And so there's been huge increased costs with the increased political divide and rhetoric that's happening on both sides of the aisle, that there is actually just more policing than is needed. And we're taking on the cost of all that. And so we do have an ask. I will be having an ask at the legislature to support that, because we're bearing a statewide cost for everyone coming here and advocating over at the Capitol. I would say that the other thing that's really important to me is that, I don't think that people understand that the rivers, the Grand Casino, the Roy Wilkins, and and our River Center, they all are city assets. And that city asset generates a lot of state and city revenues, and we need to upgrade those. And I think that the conversation in the past has been like, this is about sports. It really isn't about sports. To me, it's about a facility that is owned by the city that needs to be taken care of because it generates revenues, and we could actually increase the revenues that the state gets and the city gets if we are able to take care of this asset. So I will be having an ask to address the needs of it.
I will just I don't know if I'm allowed to actually endorse like legislative things. I will say I've been in the River Center parking lot recently, and it could use some tuck pointing, to say the least.
Ripe for an update.
A little more than tuck pointing if you've been down there.
Yeah.
Now, Mayor Her, I want to turn our attention to something that's actually happening this week in St. Paul. The day this episode comes out, the St. Paul City Council is going to consider key updates to Chapter 44. And the three key updates identified in the pre-meeting publication says strengthening training and reporting requirements related to the ordinance, and this is the separation ordinance. And then number 2, clarifying that the city's policy is to not assist ICE or employ crowd control tactics during ICE operations. And number 3, clarifying that nothing in the ordinance prevents public safety officials from responding to calls for aid from St. Paul residents in the presence of ICE. And I am reading slightly between the lines here, Mayor Her, and I'm wondering if the importance of this update has anything to do with the Rose Avenue raid in November of last year, when many community members feel that St. Paul policies were not followed by St. Paul police. And as I understand, there's an investigation underway. But am I putting two and two together correctly, that one reason to update Chapter 44 is because it appears to many, including myself, that it was not followed in November of last year?
So because there is an active investigation, I can't comment on the Rose incident issue. But I will say that I think that there is more that we can always do for public safety and protecting the public. I do worry about the actual separation ordinance. Not that I worry, but I want us to consider that because it has longstanding precedent, and there are numerous lawsuits right now that require the current separation ordinance, because we've had it in place for over 20 years. That changing that now actually could impact those current lawsuits right now. And so, I have encouraged, and our team has encouraged City Council, instead of changing the separation ordinance, that to actually work on individual city ordinances, instead of working the separation ordinance itself, to work on ordinances that would achieve the same things that they're trying to, which I completely agree with, that there are things that we have to do differently. And so my hope is that we consider the impact that it has on current lawsuits that we're trying to win right now, if we were to change that separation ordinance. But I think that that last one that you mentioned about the police. Read that one again for me, Sean. What was that last one you said?
Well, I was saying, is the motivation to update Chapter 44 informed by the fact that many community members feel that even the existing policies were not followed on Rose Avenue in November of this year? And I put myself in that. I felt like by looking at what happened and reading the coverage, I did not feel that the current policies were followed. And is that part of why you're fortifying them now?
And again, I can't comment because of the lawsuit and talk about those two things, but I will say that there are some processes in place. And this is the same thing I weighed at the legislature, right? Like, what do we codify into law, and what are things that are policies and procedures that are things that we should strengthen, right? And actually, as for me, what I saw happen directed me into working with police and our advocates, the Immigrant Defense Network, who we work very closely with, on putting together action plans for next, should there be another gathering in which there are large demonstrators, like how do we let community lead that, and how do we protect community leaders while we're doing that, right? So we've changed, without even changing the ordinances, we've already actually been putting plans into place about how this would look differently next time, and how does police show up to support the advocates on the ground doing the work.
My follow-up to that is about, there was a community meeting held in very early January at Indigenous Roots, and I think at that one you elected to not have the police chief there because of his inability to make comments, and because of this lawsuit. When you're trying to be in community, which is what you come from, but you feel that many leaders, including the police chief, and to some extent in your answer now, you can't comment on it, what do you think is the biggest comfort for the community if a lot of the leaders can't speak to the moment?
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge, right? It's like, I think when you say that you can't comment and that people think that you're hiding something, or that you don't want to answer the question, and the truth is that you don't want to compromise the investigation, because even like Chong Lee, who was the gentleman who was dragged out of his house in the East Side in his boxers and his and that red blanket. I made a couple of comments about that, and because there's an active investigation on that, I was actually contacted by lawyers to actually not make any more comments about that particular case, because it would compromise that. So I don't know if the public understands that it is actually protect the people who are part of the case, so that it works out in their favor. And I will say that even like the young Somali woman who was dragged out of just trying to go pick up her medication, because there was a very public presser around that, it actually compromised her case. And so, like, I think that I hope that people give us the grace, and especially someone like me who was born into community, who was raised by community, who still shows up like somebody who is from community, because I am, and that'll never change, is that when I say that I can't say something, it's not because we're hiding anything or we don't want to accommodate what is happening. It is truly because of the investigations, and that we have to be sensitive to that. And like in one case, somebody's investigation has already been compromised, and now to try to fix it. And this young Somali woman's rights were clearly violated, but because of some of the open pressers and comments that have been made, like her case has been compromised. So I hope that people think about that and give us some grace as we're trying to work through this really difficult and unprecedented time.
So, speaking of communication, it seems possible that you could end up like on a phone call with President Donald Trump or something like that. And I'm curious, like, what would you say to him right now to try and communicate what impacts this is having in St. Paul and for this community? And if there's anything that you might have a notion of trying to say to him that I don't know, might be different from what probably a lot of other people have tried to communicate to him.
That is a great question, Tane. And I have found myself on the receiving end of some interesting phone calls that I could have never anticipated or believed that I would ever be a part of. And I will say that I think that my unique situation as a refugee who came to this country, my family's experience in fighting a war for a country that they had never set foot in, and fighting for democracy of what America stands for, and the dream that America offers those of us who come here and work really hard. Like, I have found that until you humanize what is happening to people who do not understand, they don't see things beyond the lens that they have. And so I have actually found that when instead of speaking broadly, first of all, we do talk broadly about what is happening in our communities, but then I bring it down to a very specific level because people tend to like me for some reason, and I'm glad that they do. But then when I tell them my story and all of my relatives who have removal orders, and like and immediate family members who have removal orders over things that they were tried for as teenagers, that in a normal system, if you were part of the majority culture, you would have never been tried as an adult, or plea deals that you were told to take because Laos was never going to be taking people back. And so like these young people take these plea deals, and these lawyers not understanding immigration law and what that meant for somebody who made a mistake when they were really young and have spent decades of their life being good citizens, paying taxes, raising families, living in suburbs, places like Woodbury, places like, Maplewood. And these are the people that are being detained. And when you give someone real life accounts of people that they do look at it a little bit differently. And I hope that as my friends across the aisle, as our colleagues across the aisle hear real stories from real people, that they have some humanity in the decisions that they're making.
Yeah, I'll just say I really appreciate that answer. And I'll say I concur. I think that the individual stories people share of their own experience and how this is impacting them is one of the most powerful things I think people have as a tool in this moment. And so I guess I second that and encourage folks who are listening to think about sharing their own stories as they're comfortable and able as well, because it's a powerful thing.
Can I share something that I haven't shared with anybody with you? And I won't say who or what, but I will say that in one of these very high powered meetings with people with the White House, I have shared some of these stories. And I think that for people who might not have ever met somebody who was in my position, who came the way that I did, that it did cause them to pause. And even 20, 30 minutes into the conversation, they stopped the meeting to say like, hey, can you tell us a little bit more about that story that you were just telling us, right? Like, I think that it is striking them a little bit different. And maybe they'll have to hear it, 7 more times. Like we talk about, the way people need to hear things before they say, oh, maybe something needs to change. Maybe we can do something that is more nuanced, that actually meets the target of what we're trying to do. I'm seeing positive results, and I hope that it moves us in the right direction and gets people making different decisions.
Speaking of conversations, Mayor Kaohly Her, I played it so cool when I saw you hanging out at Diane's place with Mayor Fry. You were sitting there, and I was like, no, let them have their meal. I was impressed. I didn't see any handlers. I didn't even see phones out. I saw like two leaders who we really want to have clear communication sitting down and sussing some things out. So my fluff question is, what did you order? But I'm also, frankly, curious how you collaborate with Mayor Fry and how frequently you speak with Mayor Fry.
I've really appreciated Mayor Fry's openness to meeting with me and working with me. He has been very generous with his time with me. I'm so glad you didn't see our handlers that day because they were there.
Good.
They were just hanging out in the crowd. We ordered a lot. Diane she's so generous. We ordered just a couple of things. I love their pork, the dish, it's like a slow cooked ginger pork dish, and I ordered that. And I can't remember what Mayor Fry ordered, but then like Diane sent out a whole bunch of things. I mean, everything there is delicious. We got almost everything off of that menu, and it was just amazing. I will share that how often Mayor Fry and I talk. We text each other. Our teams actually communicate quite regularly when our work intersects, when we are trying to work through pressers or work through issues. But like one morning I couldn't sleep. It was 4 a.m, and I texted Mayor Fry because I can't remember what had just happened, and I texted him saying, "Hey, I know things are really tough right now," or something like that, and like I just wanted to let you know, like I'm thinking about you, and I hope that everything goes well tomorrow. And he literally texted me back within seconds. He's like, "Well, apparently both of us can't sleep," and so we texted for a little bit, and like it's pretty casual. It's like people who care about each other and care about their cities and just trying to do right by it, and so. I'm really grateful for his partnership.
Let's bring you back to St. Paul, though, next time. Where are you going to bring Mayor Fry when the meeting is in St. Paul? Like, what restaurant do you want him to give a try to in the capital city?
There's a Korean place called Heat on the east side that is right on Arcade, and I love that place, and I would love to bring him there because and I love Diane's place, but Diane has made it so big and she's so fancy, and her place is amazing. But I want him to see what it's like to be on an east side, hole in the wall, immigrant business where you don't have all the chairs that match, and you're it's just this place that has delicious food, but it's not where you would think to bring something, somebody fancy. So I would love to bring him there.
We're kind of doing this now, but there's this constant thing all of us in the Twin Cities are doing right now of living in a time of crisis while also just trying to do regular day-to-day stuff. So last week I saw a photo of you at an asphalt recycler, and then you were also, I believe, doing a video to recruitment for the St. Paul Fire Department. Right. And so there's all this just regular mayor stuff. I would love if we had done 20 minutes of this interview about the asphalt recycler for what it's worth. But I'm just curious how you're balancing, again, all of this heavy, difficult, stuff that nobody probably would have imagined being on your plate right now a month ago, with just then also running the city and sort of day-to-day things that need to get done. And you came in with a whole batch of concepts and ideas and plans.
No, Tane, I think that is really important for us to center, right? The moment we are in is so crucial, and we have to fight what is happening as much as possible. But, we still have issues around, families and people struggling with addiction. We are still having to rebuild our cities and grow our tax base because property taxes are unmanageable. That we still have to, address, our education system and working with our partners and making sure that our kids are able to access, high quality education. All those things remain. People who are still unsheltered, and we had 3 fires at one of our encampments because people are trying to stay warm and their tents burnt down, and we those things all continue. And it's I want people to know that we can hold all of those things together at the same time in the same space, and that we must meet the moment in the crisis we are in, but we must continue the operations of our city, and we can do both at the same time.
You started this interview talking about that one of your proudest decisions is having multiple assistant mayors, which is a new structure for St. Paul. I'm curious, can anybody be an assistant mayor? Can Sean be an assistant mayor? Can you deputize Sean as deputy assistant mayor?
And apparently I can choose whoever I want to have being assistant mayor. So I don't know, Sean. I mean, I filled all four of them already, but I'll have you in line for the next one.
Mayor Her, the only thing is, if you have in the job interview, do I know how to personally jump a car? The answer is no. I saw you jump your car and get it going on a cold morning. And don't call me. I'll call AAA. So I feel like if you need people, don't put me in charge of motorized vehicles and getting things running, because I was impressed that you were able to get your car jumped. I'm always calling AAA when that happens. But please still consider me as the 5th assistant mayor.
Absolutely. But I will say that I'm much older than both you and Tane probably. But I grew up in the time of which, like, as you know, I used to check my own oil with the little dipstick and to see if I needed to take my car in, or, you know, like I know how to change a tire. I know how to jump a car. I know, like, it's just things that like I was taught to do because you just had to. And there was nobody who was gonna come save you. So you save yourself.
That's not a generational difference. That is just like a straight up salty the earth difference. Like Mayor Kaohly Her knows how to do some things that I don't think my daddy knew how to do a lot of those things. But I'm glad, frankly, that we have a mayor who really does come from a world. I'm glad we got a mayor who can change their own oil if they need to. Like that's a good look for the city. Mayor Her, you've been very generous with your time. You've been very present with us. We had some softball questions and we had some more difficult questions. There's a lot of difficult questions ahead of you. I hope we get to speak again in the future. But I appreciate your willingness to chat with CityCast Twin Cities, and I appreciate your willingness to be open about things that are working and things that aren't working in the great city of St. Paul.
Thank you so much for having me, Sean.